Well, that was a joke. The Yankees lose 12-5 to the Rays and actually to Toronto. But I guess, Jake, I really wanted to know like what the temperament is now, because it seems like we come into these games and we blame who's playing, who's not, right? And it just seems, how can I even display this as anything but predictable at this point? We don't really know who's playing. We don't really know why they're going to play and in what order. And mental errors are just status quo at this point. And by the way, the Rays are currently in a tie with Oakland. I'm going to call them Oakland. I don't care where they play. 2-2. If they win this game, we're going to be in a tiebreaker for first place. That's how bad it's gotten. It's bad. And I know our team steadily try to describe to us that this just happens to all teams. Everyone goes through this. And yet you look at most teams, they don't. They just don't. Does it happen around baseball? Sure. But not for the teams that win World Series. It just doesn't. And I believe this is now fair. We've gone now several weeks into this. We've talked about certain players and how they've played, how they've fared, whether or not they should play. And certainly we'll do that in this episode. But I think it's fair, Jake, for us now to bring up, and if you guys are new, make sure you subscribe and like this video. It's Aaron Boone. I think now when you're talking about fundamentals, if your team as a unit, I either have to believe that all of these players just all have low baseball IQs and they're just not prepared to play pre-pitch. And I wanted to go over, Jake, before I kick it off to you, of certain things that can happen. Because Max Fried today, he wasn't good for the first time since that Dodgers series. I don't really think anybody cared. He's been good all year. But I'm a firm believer that Aaron Boone has a simple task, and that is to pull the most out of players, mentally and physically, both, right? And he's not in full control of those things, but you need to be a positive change to what these players are coming into. Now, you can ask, fundamentally, does this group play positive fundamental baseball? Does the infield defense know where they're going with the ball? Just yesterday, Anthony Vulpi said he was being aggressive. He flat out threw a baseball away where there was no play. He was not prepared. He just wasn't, right? And so I really ask people at this point, would you call this group, the whole team, is this a high baseball IQ group? How about base running, right? Super important. If you're going to win, and you're going to win when it matters, especially in October, how's your group on the base pass? Are they smart? Are they making the correct choices? And Aaron Judge just the other day ran to third base for the final out, right? And everyone said, well, who cares? We were going to lose anyways. I cared. I genuinely did. Jason Dominguez didn't know the count. He just strolls off the base a few weeks ago. And he's thrown out, of course, and like always, but he wasn't benched. He wasn't held accountable. Now he's a 22-year-old kid. He needs to be held accountable and to help him grow. Aaron Boone didn't do that. He just thought, well, it's just a brain fart. No big deal. Anthony Vulpi, he's been picked off 3 or 4 times this year. He's stolen 8 bases. 9, excuse me. He's been caught 7 times. So it's just at this point now, Jake, we're getting to a point down the road where you see so many dumb baseball plays as a group. It's difficult to even count on and point out one player. Say it's Vulpi, Dominguez, Judge on one given play, a Stanton not tagging up. I just think this is leadership at this point. They're not held accountable, and Aaron Boone should, in theory, he should be in trouble, but I think we both know he's probably not.
You know, I see a lot of the whole idea that, like, it can never happen. I mean, like this right here from the Break Studio, appreciate you engaging in the comment section. I don't agree with this. This is no different than when we were talking the other day. My dad always brings this up, who was on the screen earlier, kind of, you know, with that humor. But my dad always brings up, there's no such thing as untradeable, because like I could give you something where it's like, all right, well, yeah, I'll even trade Aaron Judge if I'm getting Ohtani, you know, whatever, Ohtani, Freeman, Betts, all of them.
Sure.
There's always a way, right? No one's untradeable and no one is unfireable. No one is unfireable. You can say that now, but if the Yankees don't start winning and say they drop below 500 for the first time all year and they start getting boat raced by the Rays, by Toronto, they don't have the tiebreakers against either of them, and now all of a sudden they're trying to climb into the wild card, right? If that happens, yes, he could get fired. Because here's the deal. The thing that Michael Kay always brings up is that there'd be all sorts of teams lining up to hire this man if he was indeed let go.
Whoop-de-doo.
But what he always brings up is that he wins a lot of games. Well, the argument in 2023 was that the best player on your team, the best player in the league, went down with an injury. So it wasn't the same team. Fine. But if that happens with a healthy Aaron Judge, a healthy Cody Bellinger, healthy rotation, we already know Garrett Cole wasn't going to pitch this year, so that's not a shock, right? It's not a rug pull. I do think he could get fired. Because think about this. You go from being in the World Series, and honestly, how far away from a World Series were they really? I always bring this up. They were in every single game. The one game that was a blowout, they won, right? So how do you go from that? And keep in mind, they don't have Juan Soto, but they have Max Fried, but they got Cody Bellinger, but they got Paul Goldschmidt, right? Ben Rice is a much better player than he was last year. Jason Dominguez is hitting very well his last 15 and 30 game span. You're seeing these guys start to contribute. You're seeing these guys start to develop. You have made arguments this year that they are arguably a better team. And I'm not just saying you, Gary, but I mean in general, if you're talking about the Yankees. So what I'm going to say is this. If Aaron Boone goes from that, going to the World Series with this roster, and they don't make the playoffs, yes, Aaron Boone 100% could get fired. I'm not saying he will. I'm not calling for his job either. I'm just trying to be honest here. If the Yankees don't make the playoffs, there's no, well, he's friends with Cash or he's friends with Hal. I don't give a rip. Everything is fine and dandy as long as the Yankees are winning. That is their organization. When they had George Steinbrenner in charge, they were all about championships. But when it comes to these, we're talking about this era, they just want to save face. They want to be a number 1 or a number 2 seed, right? That's what they want because they look at, they don't even care about the seeding. They look at the playoffs, and Gary, you've brought this up many times, as a crapshoot.
How's that winning?
As long as you get in the playoffs, there you go. Well, no, winning is just winning a lot of games. It's what.
Then they're not. So they're not winning.
So they're not winning championships. But that's my thing, though. Is so now
he should be fired regardless. So it's like we're
I get what
probably
you're
going to end up
saying.
in October baseball, no matter how dumb we play. There aren't a ton of great teams in the American League. There's just not. Is Detroit a really good team?
No, there's not.
But the American League is just putrid. Look at last year. We made it into a World Series and everyone's just beating our chests. And I understand getting excited. I was excited. We still get to go. But, guys, we beat Cleveland and Kansas City. We should have beat those two teams. How could you not? It wasn't the same run as having to go through a Houston or having to go through another team that's been beating the brakes off us for years. We didn't have to do that. It wasn't some long, grueling process. It wasn't like those runs in 2009 where you're seeing A-Rod putting the team on his back and come from behind victories, against that Minnesota team. The run was nothing like that. So for me to look up and say, well, Aaron Boone was just so close, I don't even look at it as close last year. I really don't. I felt like we were part of the dance because of the journey. I just do. And I'm not trying to discount it, but it is what it is. And also when people mention the winning, the 90 plus games this year. Okay, next year he also won 90 plus. He lost Judge. All that context. Why don't they provide the context that these other managers don't get a chance to manage a $300 million roster? At what point do people bring that context where a Kevin Cash or somebody else, they're having to go out there and manage dudes who will be around for 2 to 3 years, fall off a cliff, they'll make a trade, and then make do with what shows up through the door. They're not doing the same job as Aaron Boone. If Aaron Boone was the manager at Tampa, how would you be more afraid or less afraid of that team? The answer would be less. If Aaron Boone lost his job from the Yankees today, and the Rays told us, we're making this hire, we are hiring him, are you more afraid of what he's going to do? Are you afraid that he knows our organization and how to pitch him? No. The answer is no. Because we're making the assumption Tampa's going to regress mentally. They just are. They're not going to be held accountable. He's not going to pull the most out of guys. And you know what? If their GM throws together a great team, it's really difficult to ruin a great team and send them out of the playoffs. You mentioned if this team falls to 500, it's not even physically possible with a healthy Aaron Judge to play 500 baseball. We did that without him. So the idea that in this bad of an American league, in order for your manager managing the New York Yankees to be fired, you have to play below 500 baseball, it's impossible. We could probably bring in any manager and accomplish that. So I'm actually on the side of that chat. I don't think he's going to be fired. I don't think they're close to firing him. They're going to look at it and say, well, we brought in a Juan Soto. We thought we had a great team. They're not going to talk about who we played. And they're going to say, well, we won the pennant. And it was just last year. So what are you guys complaining about? All these other teams would love to win a pennant. Well, we're not these other teams. We pay $30 for chicken buckets. We podcast about every game. These other teams don't really do this. They just don't. Yeah, the Dodgers do. Teams with expectations. So, Jake, I mean, when we're talking about what his job really is, your job is to build quality lineups and hold guys accountable and pull more out of these players. That's your job. He doesn't do any of those things. He just doesn't. Nothing's consistent. It's just consistently inconsistent. And I want to throw Mark up here with the supers. Thank you, Mark, for the 10. Greatly appreciate it. He said, what on earth is Jeff Hartlieb? And what were they doing on the mound today? Is it some sort of wild animal who got loose? Also, Weave Dog has not been himself since injury. It's concerning. Yeah, Weaver hasn't been the same. I think we can all acknowledge that. But it doesn't really seem like that's going to matter right now. It just feels like if a player plays well and he's the hot hand, we just seem to go away from it and talk about our depth, right? We tend to utilize, I've heard this a lot, Jake, and I want to ask you about it because Aaron Boone very clearly is using this roster and the amount of decent players they've got. They say, well, I've got them, so I should use them. I don't think that's always the case, but I've heard that it's a good thing. You have a Jason Dominguez who plays really well. Trent Grisham, we were just talking about how we would get rid of that surplus. Even though he's a solid player, he's not bad. We wouldn't play him because we want to see what this kid, Jason Dominguez, can do full time. And yet Aaron Boone makes the decision, the 22-year-old who's playing well of late, yeah, it's just not good enough. I want this other guy to play. What do you think about this?
Well, I had the realization today that the Yankees have the least fearsome bullpen you have ever seen when Luke Weaver isn't on. And honestly, even when he is on, let's think about this. Mark Leiter Jr. is falling off a damn cliff. Okay. He's back to Mark Leiter Jr. of last year. Ian Hamilton, no one is scared of Ian Hamilton. Jonathan Loaizaga, no one is scared of Jonathan Loaizaga. Tim Hill, no one is scared of Tim Hill. Fernando Cruz had one. I think he did have the best K rate in the league. He's gone.
And Weaver just got here, by the way. Brand new to success. He wasn't good 2 years ago. So
and Jeff Hartlieb has a 27 ERA, so I never want to see him take a mound for the Yankees ever again. And I mean, we kind of told you that yesterday. I mean, this guy was called up in place of Cruz, who's a difference maker. When Cruz is on, he's one of the best relievers in the league. And then you replace him with a guy who's 31, and we already know what he is. He's just not a good pitcher. He just kind of bounces around AAA, and you call him up, and then you remember, oh, yeah, he's not that good, and then you send him back down. I mean, it's not good right now. And then, on top of this, you have a shortstop who's 0 for 4 with runners in scoring position, who's not even good at playing shortstop anymore.
I don't think I've ever seen that before. Every single at-bat you took the whole day? Or was it every at-bat except for one? How many at-bats did he take today? 5.
He took 5. He went 0 for 5.
One at-bat he had today. He came
I would have rather seen him
position.
strike out than the fouling, the pop out. Like, I don't even want to see that. I would rather see a strikeout. Popping it out softly like that, it's like, where's the pop that we were hearing about? Where is the exit velo? He's got nothing right now. He is the worst player on this team. If you just ignore
I did
the bullpen.
hear, by the way, because I did make a statement about Anthony Vulpi, and
Mm-hmm.
And I was mentioning the range and the arm strength and obviously the errors. So if the ball's hit right at you and you boot the ball, that's an error. If you can't get to the ball because you don't have great range, they can find ways to monitor that, right? And they've done it. He's below average at that. Then the ball is successfully put in your glove. You take it out your glove and you get to throw the ball. That's how baseball works. Anthony Vulpi is worse. He is basically 35th percentile, 34th percentile in arm strength. So he's below average in arm. He doesn't field the ball at a high clip.
Nope.
He's also is making poor IQ decisions. You saw this yesterday. And everyone watched it. I think most people who watch our podcast, they do watch more times than not, and they saw that throw. And he called it post-game. He said, I was just trying to be aggressive. That was just nonsense. That was just a nonsense answer. It was garbage. It made no sense. It's just a mistake. The entire broadcast, they didn't even hide it today. They said, well, I mean, there was no play to be made. So there's no being aggressive. You don't just slide into a base when you're already out. Like, that's not how this sport works. But Rich Squires, who's been a member for 10 months, Rich, we really appreciate it, says there is no development of fundamentals in the minors except launch angles, and there is no accountability at the major league level. So this is tricky because it's a matter of how important do you think Aaron Boone is? Do you think that even if it's taught at AA, at high A, and Jake, you've talked about George Lombard Jr., the path that all these guys are on, right? Spencer Jones, they're putting it together. They seem to be playing smart baseball, running the bases hard and smart. And then you get up to the big leagues and it seems like they regress. So, Rich, I don't necessarily want to believe it's everyone in the entire system. I don't. I just tend to look at the common denominator. The common denominator is Yankees prospects tend to play a certain way, and they're smart, and they're athletic, and they're using their legs, and they're using all aspects of their game, and then they come play with us. And next thing you know, you're asking, how does he not know the outs, right? Or better yet, when he makes that type of mistake, why wasn't he held accountable, and why should it change? The answer, Rich, is that it shouldn't. So, yeah, I completely understand there's no accountability here, and that is why, and Jake, maybe you won't say it, that is why I do not want Aaron Boone as our manager at all. I just don't. Do I think he's going to be fired? No, I don't, because I think we're going to show up. We'll throw a punch back because we've got some pretty good players on our roster. It's not like we're dog water, but we're going to go out there, fight above 500. The division's buns. It's not good. We're still trying to outrun Tampa, right? In Toronto, we just played this team. This is not a great team, and yet we find ways to lose handily. So, I don't know, guys. I just think in general, we're not outrunning any type of beast, right? This isn't a hard task. It really shouldn't be. The Yankees are just making it such, and then obviously into the deadline, if we make a couple pickups, we should be fine. But is it good enough for Yankees baseball? I don't think so.
Yeah, I mean, what I would say is this. Am I calling for Boone to be fired right now? No. I have always maintained exactly how I felt. If Aaron Boone can't get back to the World Series this year, he needs to go. That's all my ask is. You got to at least get back to where you were last year. You have to. Now, what I will say is, again, going back to what I was saying, he absolutely could get fired. I don't care what anyone says. I don't care about his extension. You can't tell me if they were all healthy, like, you know, the top guys, and they start losing like crazy, and we're talking like no recovery. We can't just act like he's just safeguarded.
What does all healthy mean, in your opinion? Like what?
Like
who?
Aaron Judge, Max Fried, Carlos Rodon, Jazz Chisholm, all like your top guys.
Right. So essentially, if Aaron Judge gets hurt, it's a cop out. Essentially,
yes,
of the results,
which
but
they
does it
would
matter
100% have.
Does it matter at all how this looks? Because you mentioned, okay, if he gets to a World Series, but if the Yankees all of a sudden fall 3 or 4 out of this division, right, and we make a fool out of ourselves at Citi Field later this week against the Mets, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, the Yankees do eventually win the division. They barely outrun Tampa. Is that enough to... Like, in my opinion, the fact that we're even going through this process, I think is already enough. I do. And it's not like he just got here 2 years ago. I think if this was like the first couple things I was seeing, I wouldn't have an ability to draw a conclusion. But I mean, how many more seasons do I have to watch of a baseball team that just genuinely will they'll get a player off their roster and Gleyber Torres say he's the problem. He's the guy who's just not situational. It's him. It's his skill set. It's not us. It's that guy. You let him run to Detroit, and then you bring in these other players who genuinely have high baseball IQs. You bring in Goldschmidt, Bellinger, all these guys, and yet your players still don't know the outs. They don't know when to pull the baseball down. Your young players don't know when they're playing. There's just too much going wrong where his decision-making makes no sense to me. The process is why I would fire him. It's not wins and losses. It's how these games are being played. It is disgusting to me, and this is why I'm glad it's a two-man show, because obviously we're allowed to have our own opinions, and you want to see the results. You want to see him get to the World Series, and then that's how you're going to judge him. I genuinely am judging my manager all the time. I'm looking at, do I trust you to build the correct lineup? Do I trust you to play the correct player? Ben Rice, you mean to tell me that you couldn't figure out that, oh yeah, we're going to get him in there at catcher? You waited to the very last second to do that? Why'd you do that? We have no idea. Jason Dominguez, he's hitting almost 350 against left-handed pitching the last several weeks. You didn't think it would be a good idea to attempt to play him every day? How's that possible? That's why I would consider this move.
I mean, that's fair. I would never. So what I would say is this: if you are calling for Boone to be fired, I'm not necessarily disagreeing with you. I'm just saying I'm not doing that. I'm not saying if they fired him tomorrow, I wouldn't be tweeting out, this is an atrocity. How could you would not catch me doing that. I'd be like, oh, wow. And then I'd probably get on our next show and say, told you so. But but no, with Rich here, and I really do appreciate this comment. I feel like there is a changing of the guard in the minors, and I've hit on this multiple times on our show. Done some research on this. The development is there in the minors. That's why all of a sudden you're starting to see Rock Reggio do his thing. That's why all of a sudden you're starting to see Spencer Jones. There is development.
The numbers say that's right.
Cam Schlittler, they have changed what they were focusing on, and you're seeing them reap the rewards from it. The problem is, and honestly, we could have done a separate video that probably would have done numbers if we just did like a separate video on this. Anthony Vulpi has failed, okay? And it's not even his fault necessarily. I think you had mentioned this, and I was really thinking about this. I think how important a shortstop is to the New York Yankees, we've already seen. Didi Gregorius was a huge pickup. Not saying he was a superstar, but he's very important to that team. He's a glue guy, right? Derek Jeter's a Hall of Famer, obviously. Shortstop matters. The problem with Vulpi is that they expedited him to the league. Whether I wanted him to come up or not has no bearing on this. Now that we have seen 1,600 plus plate appearances, we've seen him in the field, we've seen him base running. Anthony Vulpi missed a very key rung on the ladder for his development. And it's not like you can now just send him back to AAA and fix it. So he's got some serious issues, and I actually think it's going to lead to him regressing. I don't think he's ever going to hit his potential. I don't. When I watch him, this is not a player that I feel like has his style of game. I think he's constantly guessing. I think he's trying to change things on the fly. He looks like, as Gary has put before, he's drowning in a glass of water. That's what I see with Vulpi. I see it in the field.
Whose choice do you think this is, by the way? So if you're saying that Anthony Vulpi probably was rushed, now not making it out of camp, obviously he was raking. So we clapped for that. We were happy about it.
Yes,
we didn't know what it would be. And we figured they must know this player better than we do. So we let it go. And we clap. Now he comes up. He's a 200 hitter all year. He's hitting homers. He hit 20. And you figure out, okay, he's a really good defender, but the bat's not ready. Now, everyone's always talked about Aaron Boone plays him every single day. It's just a given. No matter how he plays, he can do what he did today, 0 for 4 with runners in scoring position, and then 0 for 1 without. it just doesn't matter. He just gets to show up tomorrow and just be part of the lineup and be the shortstop of the Yankees. There's just no ramifications. Some of that also is Brian Cashman not having a better option or another option for the Yankees to go to. But here's where I'm worried about this. I don't even know who necessarily to blame, because obviously Brian Cashman makes the decisions of who to call up and who to send down, who's ready and who's not. He's
Volpe
making
still
those
deserves
choices.
blame, by the way.
Yes.
Let's make that very clear.
Yes, but what's so interesting about it is that if your general manager says, hey, we're going to keep this guy up at the big league level, but you're a competent manager, you mean to tell me you looked at Anthony Volpe, a player who's below league average in range, below league average in arm strength, third in the league in errors, and you mean to tell me he's hitting 225 and you didn't think to sit him down? At what point does Aaron Boone have to walk into Cashman and make a phone call and say, hey, this is not working. You need to come up with a solution here, because are the Yankees, you're just going to look up and say, well, we're 48-37, so Volpe can't be that big of a problem. Well, that's how rosters work. Imagine what this team could be if you just had a better shortstop, someone who was league average, someone who was better than that, right? So I don't know. It's difficult to blame Aaron Boone fully for this, because I feel like both he and Cashman are just kind of crapping the sheets together on this project. This is just a group project failure that they deserve a ton of blame for. And I can't say I feel bad. I mean, this is a professional baseball player, but goodness, they did him no service at all in how they went about this business.
No, and we've talked about this, right? We've talked about Jackson Holiday, great example of, okay, he's not ready, send him down. Volpe, they wrote it out. He only missed 3 games in his rookie year, and there was no point, besides the 21 home runs, there was no point where you saw an above average shortstop. Then the next year, they tell him, yeah, we want you to flatten out your swing. So then the home runs go down. He has the same amount of RBIs, but the home runs go down. The average goes up, but his OPS was actually lower than 2023. And right now, because the big thing has always been about WAR with Volpe fans. They're always, 3.2, 3.4. He's got a 1.6 WAR right now. 1.6. Like, this is
that's
a
what
player.
someone told me today. They said his defensive WAR was still top 10 in baseball. So people used, they said his arm's bad, his range is bad, and he's making a ton of errors, but we do not care. Why? Because his defensive WAR tells me a different story. What analytic are the Yankees reading? What are they consuming to tell me that this player is something that I'm like not watching? Explain it to me. I need to know.
For bringing this up. I actually have something to say.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I love David Cohn. Mm-hmm. David Cohn brought up how the Yankees have their own. They essentially use their own analytics in-house.
I wrote that down as well.
What? Yep. Like, not hating on David Cohn. Love him. But like hearing that, I think I was close to shriveling up and dying. That told me, do you know what that sounds like?
What does it sound like?
That is like the parent that has the kid that's failing in school. It's like, oh, well, you're not a failure to me, honey. It's like, what does that do? What does that do? If your kid he's not passing anything, and you're just like, you know what? Grades be damned. I know you're smart. Like, not like, trust me. This analogy, it's not them saying, I know you're smart. You could turn this around. Let's do this, 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 and this. No, it's, I don't care what they say. You're smart to me. That's all that matters. It's like, okay, but how are you going to get into a college? How are you going to graduate high school? How are you, middle school? Whatever.
The world thinks you're a dumbass, but I think you're smart. Okay. Yeah. Well,
it's like, what?
At what point, think of it this way. Any player, any great player in today's game, I don't care who you pick, take your pick. If you go to Baseball Savant, it's essentially going to tell the same story. You look up Ohtani, you look up Judge, right? And this is part of the reason why we looked up Ben Rice and some of his trends. But all great players in the game today, all their analytics, it tells a story. It's not the holy grail, but there aren't really any great players in today's game where you go up to the Savant page and go, geez, it's really not telling the story. No, it does. It does. So when you're telling me that you guys have a different equation than what everyone else is using to figure out, oh, and by the way, how about the equation of my eyeballs? How about that equation? Has anyone at some point, because in our comment section, we saw a lot of Buck Showalter, right? We saw some Mattingly from you too, Jake. You guys have mentioned some guys, and most of them are old school mentalities. Why is that? Because if you watch the Yankees, I think there's one key takeaway that you can have about this team. They have about as opposite of an old school mentality as you can get. They don't watch a player, and that's what Clint Frazier was getting at. They don't watch a guy rake on a Monday, and then you show up Tuesday, if you miss the game and you see guys on the field, you'd say, oh, these are the guys. Like, these are the guys who are part of the starting nine. They must be balling. I wonder what's their story of how they got here. For the Yankees, there is no story. There's actually no rhyme or reason. They want me to believe there's some hidden analytic and some hidden department where they figure it out, but we don't know what we're talking about. All these, right, errors, those old school stats like errors, the ball's booted right to you, those are all old school. Throw them out the window. We've got something different to show you that this player is great. How smart do you think you are?
You know what they
Seriously,
probably use?
What do they use?
They probably use mocap, and they're like, well, actually, he had a good positioning there, but it didn't. No, I'm messing. But no, they're probably using AI. They're probably you see the whole AI futuristic hockey or soccer, whatever the hell it was. No, it was basketball.
No, I saw Elon Musk was coming out with a new robot, and I was like, well, maybe the robot can come play short for us. Because when I was watching this, by the way, I heard something very interesting from Michael K this evening. Very interesting.
Yeah. He was towing the line there.
He sure was. And he was mentioning social media. And I was listening to it. I was like, oh man. Well, obviously we're part of social media and not necessarily X. And he's probably talking about both Twitter and also podcasts. The coverage is extremely negative on Vulpi right now. And it does seem like if there's negative coverage, it's almost gaslit for Yankees baseball now. It's not the way it used to be, where you could actually criticize people with free will and people would let you do it and blow out the lines. No, in today's, it's kind of like, okay, well, you're criticizing this player and mentioning all the flaws about him, but why are you doing that? Do you hate him? Like, is this a personal thing? Or should Brian Cashman or Aaron Boone, should they take into consideration the way the fans feel? Is that maybe a part in all this? And that was what was asked for Aaron Boone, and he said, well, I can't pay attention to that. Well, obviously not. But
yeah,
maybe all these people are complaining because there's something valid to be said. We're the customer. So it seems that they've forgotten that. Again, I don't think they should be calling and be like, hey, Gary, the podcaster, who do you think should play shortstop tomorrow? No. However, when literally anyone can turn on a game at Yes Network and say, hey, that guy's the worst player on the field every day, and it's been like 2 or 3 weeks in a row, perhaps you should consider, is there somebody else who can do the job, at least in the short term, so we can get him ready later on?
No, I think that's definitely fair, and I like the way Michael K kind of, put that out there, because I think he was almost kind of agreeing. Like, he didn't actually say he was, but he was like, and he's been a defender of Vulpi, but think about this. If you and I are tired of watching Vulpi swing and miss and do whatever he's doing, how do you think Michael K feels? His job is to call these games. He is at all of these games. He's not all of them, but he's at most of them. And he has to watch this guy. And like, that has to be frustrating because on one hand, like he knows Vulpi probably, I would assume. Like he sees these guys, he talks to them, all of that. So it has to hurt. But at the same time, it also has to hurt just seeing him doing this. Here's my thing with Vulpi, okay? Are we at the point where the ceiling, there's really no upside to even keeping this thing going? Because I understand he's 24, but again, 1,600 plus plate appearances. Like, what's the thing Colin Cowherd always says? You're closer to Aaron Rodgers than you are Andy Dalton. Well, Anthony Vulpi is a lot closer to Trevor Story than he is Trey Turner, right? And the whole
today's Trevor story.
Well, yeah. But like the point being, or maybe not even Steven Drew. There, we'll use Steven Drew as an example. He's a lot closer to Steven Drew than he is a Trey Turner, right?
Easily.
And my thing with that is an abject failure, whether that's on him, whether that's the organization, I don't care. So if we just continue to say, yeah, 402 games isn't enough, just keep giving him more games, keep giving him more time, I would argue this is a super massive black hole in the lineup, okay? And my biggest thing is that now you don't have the glove, okay? You don't have the glove anymore. So that's the problem with Vulpi, is that he's not even putting up elite defensive numbers that can get you off his back. That's the thing with Jimenez. Today, for Toronto, he's hitting like 209, but you know what? He's one of the best defenders in the league. That's why they traded for him.
As soon as they said that, he scorches the ball up the middle. Did you notice that? They're like, he's hitting 200, can't hit a lick.
Every time.
Boom. Just
every
pops the
time
ball.
Without fail.
But your point just remains, is that if you're not going to hit, I need to know for certain what I'm getting with your glove. And that's been the story for most players in this game's history, is that, yeah, that guy can't hit a lick, but you can just make the assumption, if you throw him over at second base or he's some utility guy, you put him over at third, he is going to do the job well. He's going to. And it just hasn't been the case with this player. And by the way, last thing I'll say about Vulpi, because I do want to move on and not talk all about him, is that if Anthony Vulpi is a really good defender, like wildly above average, but he's not a good hitter, he's a bust. I hope people understand that even with a great glove, if you can't hit, you better be Ozzie Smith. To be the Yankee shortstop, what are we doing here? This is silly.
We were on Vulpi last year, so I'm not going to sit here and act like, oh, this is new. No. But you know what is new? I felt a sense of he could turn it around last year. I felt a sense of he's still got time.
Yeah, I think we had a shot last year.
I
thought we
don't
did.
feel like he has time anymore. I feel like this is who he is. And, you know, I used to have that reality that everyone else is having, like, oh, he's just a 7 hitter. That's just who he is. No, he's actually an issue now. Because why is Vulpi in your lineup? Why is Vulpi playing every day? It's not because of his glove right now. You're telling me you're hoping that it's his potential. But I'm not seeing any potential there. I'm seeing regression. So here's what I'm going to say, okay? I actually do, and it might be too late, but I don't care. I actually do think Anthony Vulpi should be sent down. I think they should try a last-ditch effort.
Who do you think they should play?
I think that they should, I think they should move Jazz Chisholm to shortstop and trade for IKF. But let's just say no trades, right? I would call it B-Boss and give him a huge run at short. That's what I would do. I would give him an actual opportunity and be like, this is your chance. And Vulpi, I wouldn't keep in AAA long, but I'd have him there for about 2 weeks, 3 weeks maybe, and see if he can just get something going. Because I think
But what if he doesn't? What if you send him down and he doesn't perform at AAA? You just let him. Mind you, I'm not telling you should be worried to send Anthony Vulpi down to learn and get better, right? To resharpen his tools. I'm not telling you that if he goes down there and he stinks, that, well, now what? It's more of like, who do you play? And whoever the Yankees try, they're going to be on the field at that position in October. So the most likely scenario is that Anthony Vulpi is going to have to figure this out. And I just don't know how he's going to go about doing it at the big league level. He is getting just ravished.
Well, that's why
by big league pitching. It's bad.
I think that's why sending him down to AAA, getting his confidence back, because make no mistake about it, you see him today. I mean, he popped out. You see him take off the helmet. The confidence is shot. Don't listen to what anybody is telling you, on the broadcast. Anthony Volpe's a guy, he isn't affected by anything. Yes, he is.
He's not human. He's not a human being. He doesn't have confidence like everyone else.
Like, no, he's not. He 100% is affected. You see it. The at-bats continue to eat him up. Look, when people say we hate on players, I don't really pay too much attention to it. But I want to actually make this very simple distinction between actually hating on somebody and criticizing them and asking for more. Okay. If we hated Vulpi, right? Straight up hated him, we wouldn't want him to be good. We'd be rooting for his downfall. We'd be rooting for him to be out of baseball if we hated him. I don't hate Vulpi. I hate what I'm seeing at the plate when I watch Vulpi. I hate what I'm seeing with the glove right now when I watch Vulpi. But guess what? If Vulpi tomorrow started hitting and all of a sudden we look and it's been 30 games and he's hitting 350 like Jason Dominguez is, guess what? Gary and I aren't going to be really saying many negative things about Vulpi, right? It's really that simple. So we don't hate Vulpi. I don't want to speak for you, but I know you don't hate anybody. I don't hate anybody. But I'm just saying at this point in time, you have to be honest with yourselves. We have been way too... You talk about Vulpi being comfortable, chat. I'll tell you right now, we're too comfortable with Vulpi being just okay. The Yankees either need to do something drastic and figure this out and try to get more out of him, or they need to try and trade him at this deadline. I'm not kidding you, because it is a waste to put him out there. And now think about this. You got, what's his face? George Lombard Jr. in the minor leagues. So now what, is he not supposed to be playing shortstop because Volpe's the guy? How long does this continue? Because we're going on now, again, he just played more than 400 games to this point in his career. I mean,
partly the responsibility of Aaron Boone. Aaron Boone throws them out there every day. You can look at your GM and say, hey, I know it's your job to call guys up, send them down, whatever, do your job. But this guy, right now, he's got the talent to do this. We've seen him do it with the glove. Yeah. We saw it his first year. But the bat, it wasn't great in 2023. It wasn't great in 2024. And people get pissed off because you mentioned those numbers aren't great. Then they say, well, his age. And I say, okay, we'll see what he does in his age 24 season. And we've seen it. He's a career 225 hitter. In his age 24 season, he's hitting 225. Okay, his slugging is down. The defense is worse. So I don't know. This is Aaron Boone has to make a clear decision that just because you're bad and we don't maybe have a clear option elsewhere, I've got to get creative. I've got to do something. And it's just bothersome to even watch him do the same thing. So DG with the super, thank you, DG, for the super and supporting the channel. Thank you for the 5. Says, wow, is this episode live? We do every episode live. Most podcasts don't do this, just in case you flub up, but we just do not care.
We do not care.
We don't care at all. Seems very familiar to the team's critiques from 2024. Same organizational issues, different season. That's been my problem solely, by the way. All these things I've mentioned, lineup construction, base running, just knowing where to go pre-pitch. Yes Network brought that up today, right? Having a consistent approach at the plate. Aaron Boone talked about this a few days ago. There just isn't one. We have no idea why, but there isn't. So you really have to ask yourself, why do we have the same problems every year despite the players changing? You guys, the Yankees should tell me. I obviously don't know anything. So why don't you guys tell me what analytic or what area, in your staff is telling you that you guys can consistently be just lackluster in the same area of baseball and then just not point any fingers, like pointing fingers and saying that this guy should lose his job. When did that become hater energy? Like at some point or another, you have to realize maybe people are saying something because there's a problem. Perhaps there's that. That's how I feel about it. And I want to catch up on some of these other supers as well. Apex with the 2. A mod for us. Apex has been awesome. Says Met series will be who can suck the least. That couldn't be more the truth. It is just, I don't even know what's going to happen in that series. And then Richmond with the super, with the 5. Thank you for the super and supporting our channel. We greatly appreciate it. Jake, by the way, what do you think is going to happen in this Mets series? Because neither team has any momentum. The one thing about the Mets is that they're getting banged up in the process of losing. So there's at least some type of rhyme or reason why they're hitting a snag. Whereas the Yankees, they lost Trent Grisham, right? Cruz is out, and we're making it seem like we lost prime Mariano Rivera on the broadcast. So I'm being so serious. They're like, this is a key cog. If you lose your 7th inning guy in Cruz, and that's a huge problem, that should tell you what you need to know out of our bullpen, doesn't it?
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. Yeah, I kind of see, and it's funny, I've been staring at this Mets-Yankees series for the last week, and I just feel like the Mets are just going to get up and get ready for that series, and they're going to beat the Yankees. I think that they'll look like a different team, and that'll be what the Mets need to get going, and the Yankees will blow the series. So who knows?
You don't have high hopes for that?
I mean, I got to be honest with you. Right now, I don't have high hopes at all for the Yankees. And I hate saying that. I really don't. You know me. I'm not a doomer. I'm the one that gets accused of being too happy-go-lucky.
Yeah, they say this. They say this in your Rams coverage. You're always looking for the positive spin. Always. Yep. How can this be positive and not bootlicking, but clearly some decisions made by the front office or by ownership? Maybe they're making this decision for a reason, and I'm going to try and locate that reason. I feel like you've done that. Me, on the other hand, I'm not cut from that cloth. Will I try and look at the positive side to it? Yes, I absolutely will. It's not just going to be, people have watched our podcast. It's not just negative stuff all the time. We try, even earlier this year, we spent 2 hours, a 2-hour podcast, talking strictly about what Aaron Boone is doing in a positive way, in a positive spin. And we weren't vouching for his job. Just in that moment, he was doing something that was good. So we should talk about that. It's exactly what we did. And yet, here we stand, right, in early June and or early in July, and you're sitting here saying to yourself, he's doing so many different things that just they don't help a baseball team win. They're not smart. They're booting balls. Guys aren't sat for not paying attention or hustling. It's frustrating. It's disappointing. And I can't exactly say what's going to happen in this Mets series, by the way. The Mets are playing such bad baseball. I don't even think people are giving them credit for how bad it is. But we don't really get up for these series. It doesn't feel like when we play the Dodgers or we play some of these teams. I know we beat the Mets earlier this year, but man, this just feels like a totally different team. I don't know what changed. I don't know what happened, but yeah, I don't know. I don't
know either, man. I don't know why Ben Rice wasn't in the lineup today. Ascara was. He now has 3 catcher interferences in 2 games. I like Ascara, but I'm going to call it like it is. That's unacceptable. Catcher's interference used to be a rare thing, okay? We used to never see that. And now we've seen it now 3 times in 2 games. Now, you could say, guy does it, you're in the same series, the umpires all convene, they all talk, and they're all like, keep an eye out, this guy's going to do it, whatever. Fine. But Ascara's not hitting right now. He's striking out, and now he's getting catcher's interference. You have Vulpi, which we talked about, right? Stanton, like, yeah, he had that, RBI earlier, later on in the game, but this is a pitcher that Stanton historically destroys. Did nothing. And keep in mind, he's slugging .268 right now. So when you don't have Ben Rice in the lineup, and you don't have him in the lineup for Ascara, who's not hitting well, and you don't have him in the lineup for Stanton, who's not slugging, well, really right now it makes no sense why Ben Rice isn't in the lineup. And then, on top of that, you've been playing Paul Goldschmidt, and he's been horrendous. He did have a good day today, which is good. They need him to get back on the right track. But the problem is, Gary, there's been a lot of players on this roster that have just been in really bad slides at the same time. The best hitters in the lineup have been a Jazz Chisholm, have been a Jason Dominguez. And as you brought up, for whatever reason, Jason Dominguez was not playing every day. He's hitting .350 in his last, 30 games. He is not playing every day.
It's not because of him. They tell us it's because it's never about the player sitting. It's about the player who's playing. That's actually the biggest problem with how we build these lineups. Aaron Boone has never said, never once, Jason Dominguez is not going to play today because he's not doing this. He's never done that. He's always said, the reason he's not playing is because I really want to get this guy in the lineup, right? And it feels like a Little League team. It does. And mind you, Trent Grisham is giving us production, but we still have made the argument, you need to figure out who should be playing and who shouldn't and just stick to that. That should be your mentality. And I wanted to throw something up on the screen. It's a regular chat. It's just exactly the way I feel. There's no question about it. So New York Yankee Jay says, been saying it all season. Boone wants to be their buddy, no discipline. Now, mind you, this isn't the Boy Scouts. Okay, this is just not. This is not that. This is professional baseball. Obviously, Aaron Boone understands this. He played professional baseball, but we hear all day long how much Boone is liked. To be honest with you guys, I don't really care how much he's liked. I don't care how many text messages he's throwing around, and I've never cared about this. Texting was around when my dad was on the team in New York, and never once did it cross my mind, I wonder if my dad's going to shoot a text or maybe have a long phone call, a long chat, and talk it up with Joe Torre. It never crossed my mind because there was a level of accountability there. If you don't do your job, I can take you off the field at any time. I'm your boss. You're not mine. We're not peers. And it feels like Boone is more of a peer in that clubhouse, in that locker room. And mind you, if the players heard this, would I expect them to get on board with it? No. This is their manager. I expect them to back their manager. And if you like the guy, by all means, great, defend him. But do I need a guy, Jake, that is a peer to the people that he's leading? I've never in my life, never seen someone who's a good leader who just views people as their peers. There needs to be some type of hierarchy here to some degree. And if you had that, you would be more comfortable playing guys every day and looking a player right in his face and saying, I want you to play. You just can't.
Yeah, I think that's definitely fair. I mean, we are not in the clubhouse, so I'm not trying to say we know for sure. But I do think it's fair. I when I think of Aaron Boone, I do think of how he is a player's manager. Not that he's a good manager, not that he's a bad manager, not that he is, he leans on the pitching aspect, that he's a specialist in it. I only think of that he gets along with his guys and he defends them, to the depths of hell, right? The way he defended Vulpi last year on a podcast. Vulpi's struggling. He's a top 5 shortstop in the league. That's what he said, right? So this is somebody that defends. We did also see him go after JC Ascara yesterday and kind of hold him accountable. So that was caught on camera. That might not always be happening, but it could be happening more often than what we're being led to believe. He could be kind of that, okay, yeah, he's quiet on TV because we're only seeing him on TV, whether it's a presser or during a game. So I want to be clear with that. And he's shown us in the past, like he took Glaber off the field for not hustling and kept him off the field for 3 or 4 games. He took Alex Verdugo off the field. He told him he didn't want him wearing 4 chains anymore. And he made that clear. So like he has had his moments in there, but for the most part, on a consistent basis, I feel like Aaron Boone is more, I understand why people say he's more of a player manager. He wants to be their friend type deal.
Are those guys out of the group chat? Do you think that did Verdugo just not get his phone number? Did Gleyber Torres just not get the number? Because I didn't quite understand. If I'm watching a player hit 250, 300, and he's jogging down the first base line, you're like, that guy in a contract year, get him off the field. He needs to learn. And then all of a sudden, a 22-year-old player who's pretty much a prospect, and Jason Dominguez doesn't even know the situation at all. He's jogging off the field, tag him, and you're like, oh, it was just a brain fart, no big deal. And then you watch players this year jog down the first base line, and people on this podcast are like, geez, that's harsh to just sit a player because he's jogging down the line. That's harsh.
I don't think it's harsh.
Is it harsh? I feel like there's you're trying to promote change. It's not this isn't, you're throwing someone in jail. So I didn't get it. Will with the super with the 2 says it's been the same BS for half a decade. Let me out. It's been a while.
Make me laugh.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. And James with the 5 says what ticks me off is Yanks keep making the same errors. That's on Boone. I'm going to say one thing. They are making the same mental mistakes. That is on Aaron Boone. Physical errors are on the players. Blame the players. If I can't trust you to field routine ground balls, stay in front of a ball, make smart decisions out there on the field, like some of this is your own doing, and you need to be prepared as an individual player. They're grown men. They keep calling them kids because they're 22. No, you're a grown man. Having said that, when you make the same consistent physical errors over and over again, and your manager, who's responsible for being your boss and telling you when you're allowed to attempt to do the next thing for this team, if he continuously lets you do things that you're failing at, now it's on him. So this is just a big group project failure, and we obviously are rooting for this to change, but I would be interested for somebody to drop a comment of why this should change or why it will change. Why should I be hopeful that based on the history of this team in the short term, the last 5 or 6 years, what have they shown me where I can say, oh yeah, they'll just figure this out, it's no big deal, and they'll be ready in October? I just don't know if I have that type of, I don't think they have that type of history yet.
Yeah, I would also say that. Again, it's tough because I don't want to put it all on Boone because I think that absolves people of their own responsibilities. I still look at this like not even just grown men, but these are professionals. These are the highest of the high upper echelon athletes in the world. Anybody who's in professional sports. And just that's always been my disconnect with a lot of sports, opinion, is that it's always placed on the coach, the manager, whatever. And it's like at the same time, like I totally understand it because there's not a lot of other reasons why. When you're looking for a reason why something is done, you will typically look at the coach. Oh yeah, the coach isn't putting him in the best position to succeed. And that totally is real. I'm not trying to say it's not. But I think you have to find the happy medium where, yes, they deserve blame, but also the player deserves blame. So I like that you brought that up because that is a big thing for me. These are professional athletes. They play a game for a living. They're supposed to be in shape for a living. They're supposed to be ready to go at the yard for a living. When they make a mistake, that's on them, okay? That is on them. The errors, the mental errors, I still feel like they should know that. But you could say, okay, that has to do with Boone. Ultimately, the one thing that really stands out about a manager, about a coach, coordinator, whatever we're talking about, is culture. And the Yankees have too much of an easy does it culture. Too much. Think about this. When Jazz Chisholm is at the podium and you see all the nightclub lights, like what's going on? They just won a game in the regular season and we're celebrating like it's a World Series win. So I feel like there's a lot of that. Who do you think's responsible for
the culture, in your opinion?
I mean, I think it's Aaron Boone. Okay. I think the Yankees have also. I think Hal obviously appreciates his father, but I think he sees some of the things his father did and is like, I don't want to be that. I don't want to be that harsh. And obviously, allowing facial hair was like the first step in everybody seeing it. But I think, really he wants more of a relaxed, organization, more relaxed locker room, a more relaxed environment where you don't have to worry about an owner coming to your locker and cussing you out, right? So I do think it has to do with Hal too. I think that's an underrated element to this. And I've heard this before. Some people, I don't remember who said it, but some people felt like Hal couldn't follow in the footsteps of his father because he saw, as great as his father was at times, or other times where, yeah, this happened and there's a bad story here and he pissed off a guy here. And obviously it's a big reason why, Ken Griffey Jr. didn't want to play for the Yankees. So there are things like that, right?
George is flawed.
And I think,
so
I think Hal tried so hard not to be his father that I think he's allowed, kind of everything. And that includes an egotistical and underwhelming GM who still has enough money. I don't care about their budget and all that. He still has enough money to get things done. And yet I still think he gets in the way of himself. I think they had a good offseason, but a good example of this, you take 2 steps forward, you take 2 steps backward. What do you have? You didn't leave, right? You're in the same spot you were. Well, I think they did a lot of good, but they did lose Juan Soto. Again, no issue with it. But if we're calculating it, they did a lot of good. They lose Juan Soto. They let Gleyber Torres go, who wanted to stay a Yankee. It made it very clear, it's a doable deal. And the big reason was because of defense. Well, he's been fine in the field. he would have been totally fine at second. If we knew DJ LeMahieu was going to be the starting second baseman, no knock against him. He's hitting 250, and I've been defending him. But if we knew that, I think we all would have taken Gleyber Torres. Next up, you have Tommy Kahnle. Tommy Kahnle said he just wanted to retire a Yankee. That's all he wanted. He pitched well for the Yankees. He's pitched well in general. He's got good stuff. But the Yankees didn't want him back. They brought back Tim Hill. They fell for his, redemption arc. I don't really understand why, but they did fall for it. He hasn't been great this year. He's not giving up soft contact. He's giving up hard contact. And meanwhile, Tommy Kahnle and Gleyber Torres are on the best team in the AL right now. And not only are they on the best team, they're contributing in a big way. Kahnle's been great.
Is Gleyber Torres going to be at the All-Star game?
He might be. Gleyber Torres has been great. Tommy Kahnle's been great. And so I do think this comes down to the fact everybody's at fault for the culture. But when you ask me who's really at fault, I think it is Hal. After really thinking about it, Hal has given Cashman the nod, and Hal's given, I think it's a very lax culture. I don't think it's one thing to be well liked. Like, again, I've talked to players that have been coached by Sean McVay, and they say that culture is amazing. We, not me. It's about the team. It's not about just the one person, but it's also about accountability. And if you step out of line in the Rams organization, you're gone. We've seen it. And I feel like that's not something that resides with the Yankees, because there have been players that have they haven't played well. Alex Verdugo had his moments. And you know what they did? They said, don't worry, Alex Verdugo. You're going to be starting over the kid that has all the potential in the world. You're going to be starting over him in the World Series. We don't care how you hit, because we know that you're the best defender we have on the roster. That's no way to run a team. They made that decision
preseason, by the way. Before the season ever started, when they brought him in, they said, this is my decision. I'm paying him X amount of dollars. I brought him here to play, and you're going to play him. And that's exactly what you saw. And by the way, I do think it's ironic, and I think it's valid for you to bring up that Hal wants to be a different flavor. He doesn't want to be his dad. He wants to be something I believe Hal thinks is the reason that the Yankees exist, which is that you never give up on the young guys, because there can always be a future. And ultimately, if you show that restraint, something great can happen. But you know what no one ever tells you? The common denominator to that is you need the core four. You need 4 Hall of Fame level players. They're going to be big time in October. You need the talent out of your system to match that. There has to be a great, all-time great scouting department. All of that has to match in order for that decision-making to have mattered. So I think that Hal looks at his father and says, well, not everything about him was good, but you know one thing no one ever talks about? The majority of him was great. The majority. Not everybody's perfect, but how long can you possibly sit here and do things your way, the same way, hire the same people, and then say that I really care about the result? Well, if you really care about the result more than your friends or being nice or being viewed in a positive way by your peers, I guess, well, you'd make the correct decisions. And this firing that I've been calling for from Aaron Boone actually has nothing to do with Aaron Boone. It has more so to do with the culture I'm after. I'm after a cutthroat culture. I'm after a culture where a 22-year-old young, hopefully up-and-coming superstar in Jason Dominguez cannot know the outs. And it's not that he's not going to play again, but there's a plan for what happens when that happens. When that happens, get your tailpipe off the field, and I'm going to show you somebody else who can go out there and do the job and be prepared to play. And then now when Jason Dominguez shows back on the field, that was always our intention, he knows not to mess around with someone who is not his peer in that locker room, in that clubhouse, not his peer. He is somebody who is above you, who's going to hold you accountable, and you're going to learn and improve as time goes on. That's what these young players are supposed to do. They're supposed to get smarter. Their IQ is supposed to improve, right? The contact's supposed to get better. The approach is supposed to get better. And yet you watch a lot of young players, and they'll get off to a hot start with the Yankees, and then their approach goes down the drain, and we're sitting there wondering, why was I projecting this all-time great player? Well, because you look around baseball, young players that show you something, you tend to project that it's going to improve. It's going to get better. And yet the Yankees don't tend to do this. So they have done it with Ben Rice. We have mentioned how he has improved. But then you see other players like Anthony Vulpi, they just projected that he would get smarter, he would get better, he would start hitting, and yet it never happened, and they did nothing about it. So very disappointing. Scott Ross, as always, thank you, Scott, for the super. Thank you for supporting our channel. As always, thank you for the 5. Says, it's the same story every year. Nice start, and then Boone swoon kicks in. There are too many holes to fix at the deadline. I don't agree that there's too many holes. We need someone to lead this team. That's one. And B, the American League is absolute cheeks. It's not good. You're going to run into Detroit. If you're a good team by the end of the year, and I think the Yankees with an aggressive deadline can still be a good team in this league. They can. You're going to end up playing Detroit, and you're going to see exactly what your team is in October. You're going to find out. So, yeah, Scott, I'm not worried about it. And this is a great super. This is awesome. Jake, I was waiting for you to see this. I'm sure you have already. Big D with the super, just recently became a member as well, I believe last episode. So thank you for doing both of those things. Thank you for the 5.
Thank
it says,
you.
as long as attendance is up, why would management do anything to win at all? When does Judge get fed up and demand moves? Yankees unloaded meetup at the stadium. So I think Jake and I both would love to do a meetup at Yankee Stadium. That would be really cool. We'll think about it. I'm not sure when we'll do it. It'll probably be in 2026, I would assume. But again, Big D, thank you for the support. And he's mentioning here, Jake, and I'm curious what you think about this, because what Big D is getting at here is that there's a bottom line in place. Is that if the Yankees, as you mentioned earlier, if they're winning regular season baseball games, and I don't mean winning 100 games. I mean if the Yankees win 92, 93 games, which they're going to be anywhere between 86 and 94 wins, somewhere in that range, right? The American League is really bad. And when the American League is very bad, that means you are playing a lot of those very bad teams. So if the Yankees win 92 games this year and they show up into October and they play really just a dumb brand of baseball and they make their exit just like they usually do, well, to his point, wouldn't we just show up the next year and say, well, we just won 93 games and lost in the division series or the championship series? So how can you complain? And then you rinse and repeat. That is the bottom line, which seems to be enough for Hal Steinbrenner because no moves have been made. How do you feel about this, Jake?
Yeah, I think what Big D is saying is very true. And this kind of coincides with what I was saying earlier, in that as long as they continue to win enough games, Boone's fine. But as soon as they start losing like crazy, people will stop showing up to the stadium. They will.
Well, that's not even physically possible. You can't. It's not even. You literally could have an infant managing this team. The players could just manage with no manager. I'm not joking you, Jake. They could have no manager, no one making the lineups. The team just comes together at the center of the clubhouse and says, who should hit first? Okay, who should hit second? They could run this team that way. They would not play below 500 baseball with the current state of the American League. They would not.
Judge hinted at this, by the way.
At what?
He was saying, yeah, we're the Yankees. We go out. I forget how he worded it, but yeah, he did kind of I'm not saying he was fist in hand slamming down Brian Cashman's desk, but that was interesting because, as you've brought up before, when he talks to the media, it's very calculated, laid back. He knows what he's saying. He's not going to give away too much. But yeah, the other day, I don't know, it was 2 days ago or 3 days ago or whatever, but he had said, yeah, we're the New York Yankees. This is what we are. We go out, we make moves, and whatever he was saying. That's not a direct quote or anything, but it was kind of the gist of it, is that he was teasing yeah, go out and make a move type deal. You know what I mean? I think you could definitely tell. By the way, earlier when you were talking about young players, again, it's always hard for me because I like where Hal's head's at, if that's where it is. I do believe in developing, but I think a really good example, and I was just on a Seahawks podcast and a guy that does the Mariners podcast, and his name is Dan, and we were actually just talking after the podcast ended about Luis Castillo and that trade. And it's very interesting because I bet you not a lot of people went back and checked on that trade and how that ended up working out.
Wasn't it Marte they ended up trading?
For Cincinnati. They got Noelvi Marte. Okay.
There we go.
And he is definitely the best piece. I know he just got hurt, but he's definitely the best piece from that. Edwin Arroyo he's 21. He's not in the show yet, right? Currently in the minors, he's hitting 271. He has a 667 OPS. That was a really big deal to move him, right? At the time, he's a huge prospect. Then you have Andrew Moore. He's out of baseball entirely. So that was one of the prospects that they traded. And then Levi Stout, he is currently in AAA with the Orioles, and he has a 5 ERA at age 27. So only Marte really panned out in that trade. And that was in 2022. So I like prospects, and I've made that very clear, but I don't just like prospects just because I like them. I like when they pan out, and I like guys that pan out. I'm not just like, you can't trade any. You can. And I think it is a reminder here, and it's a good reminder because I don't even know if you had checked up on that trade, but it is fun to go back and see how trades aged.
I checked up on Marte, and people always make the assumption that if you trade prospects, you're trading what could be, and they always just calculate, okay, we got rid of these 4 prospects, and they make the assumption each and every one of them will reach their potential. None of them will. In one will at best. People really act like you end up trading 2, 3, 4 prospects and 4 of them pan out. Not very often. It just doesn't. That trade that you saw with the Padres and the Nationals, that type of heist does not happen. Doesn't happen very often. And even then, if you really get honest,
well, Juan Soto's don't get traded like that. So,
Right. But you can also just pay the money. If you're the Yankees and you're the Dodgers, if you're a major market, you developing talent, it's not as important as like the Pirates or any of these other teams as a Baltimore. It's just not. If you guys trade a prospect and now you're a little bit thin and you're saying, well, now I don't have a big time prospect at third base. Okay, well then go sign a free agent this offseason. You can simply do that. And people say it doesn't work that way. This isn't the video game. The Dodgers do it. And you make more money than they do. So it doesn't compute to me. It just doesn't. Not all prospects can be traded. You still need to use some of them. You can't just have a $600 million roster. But having said all this, that you have to figure out what risks are worth taking. And when you're the Yankees, you should be taking a lot of risks. You should consider yourself a risky team, a team that goes out there and hangs it out there. It seems like we go into the offseason trying to win trades, and maybe we do win trades, but winning trades doesn't really win you World Series championships. The aggressive teams tend to do that. That's what's sad to me. It really is.
Yeah, and Richmond is wondering why they can't find someone better than Boone. I think it's hard to know for sure, but I think if you put Mattingly or an authoritative guy, right? A guy who's more, I think him or Buck Showalter, I think you'd have probably the same or better results. That's kind of how I see it.
I know we'd get better I know for a fact. This is one thing I will say. You've talked about this player.
Mm-hmm.
His name is Ben Rice. I know for certain if we had any old school manager who says that player did X today, and that means I'm going to do Y tomorrow. There's a cause and effect of how I build my lineup. Any old school manager would have had Ben Rice in the lineup far more often than what he has been so far. He would be a better player right now, and that would help the Yankees. It just would. Is it the difference maker? No, but it sends the clear message. If you perform in the next 2 to 3 weeks, you should expect in the next 2 to 3 weeks to be on the field. We need you to play. And it's just something that Boone doesn't do. Obviously, they tell us they have analytics that we just don't see. I would love them to be public so I can learn how to not build a lineup. I would love to learn it.
Yeah, and then, you could go with the younger guy, too. Like, we're seeing the Lakers go with J.J. Redick and all that. Like, you could go with like an AJ Pierzynski or somebody like that. But I think having kind of an old school mentality is where there's always kind of a pushback in sports. Sometimes something works and then it works too well, and then people have kind of figured it out. I do think there's going to be a pushback on analytics. I do. And I think eventually kind of that old school mentality will come back into baseball. Because
do you think it'll happen for us?
I don't know if it will happen for the Yankees, but I'm telling you now, we're going to start to see it. A lot of what, you know, is being talked about now, right? Is you have like a Joe Girardi, who's a manager for the Phillies, and he's old school, and now he sticks out like a sore thumb because they're losing. And he's got old school mentalities, and everybody in the organization is trying to push the new school down his throat. And Robbie Thompson, who he brings onto the coaching staff, he's willing to, while he's still old school, he's willing to work just enough with like those nerds in the organization that they're like, okay, yeah, we'll keep you around. And then they start winning. I don't necessarily feel like Girardi was fired for anything other than the fact he just refused to get into the analytics. And he'll tell you on broadcast, like, he's not that type of guy. He doesn't see the game that way. And honestly, that's how Boone should be, because Boone is a third generation big leaguer. You know, that's the thing that frustrates me. And I understand in the world, it's 2025. Everyone's talking about easier ways to do things and AI, robots, all this. But there is not one algorithm out there that you could produce.
Should we have an AI like an iPad? It just has a face, just a smiley face.
But you hear me out though. There's not one algorithm out there that can replicate feel, and that's in any sport. So, you know, if you're looking at sports, you know, in a spreadsheet form, and we use analytics on here. We talk about Baseball Savant. We use StatCast. I think StatCast is great, but StatCast is also a tool. Like, if we were only judging based on StatCast, you'd think Cody Bellinger isn't a good baseball player, right? Because his exit velo
was horrible.
Yeah,
he finds holes.
Yeah, exactly. And you have talked about it. Like, your job is not just to hit the ball hard; it's to hit the ball hard where defenders aren't. Well, Cody Bellinger has kind of mastered the art of just hitting it where guys aren't. And that is him actually knowing how to swing. He takes 5 different swings, and they're all for different purposes. And that is the thing that analytics can't measure. They don't have like, oh yeah, when Cody Bellinger uses this swing. No, that's just feel. That's just using your eyes. And so that's kind of where I'm at right now, is that I don't know if the Yankees go down that path, Gary, but I do feel like we are coming to a point where there's going to be a pushback. And I would compare it to how everybody talks about how the NFL is a passing league, right? Then all of a sudden, you have all these different defenses you've brought up before, the Legion of Boom, how they kind of changed everything. And now all of a sudden you're running that type of defense. And then there's another defense that is starting to run, and it's having success, and, you know, whatever. Now, do you know what's happening? The league is shifting back to running the football. It's why we had a 2,000-yard rusher last year in Saquon Barkley. That wasn't really a thing. And Derrick Henry as well. So the point being is that when you push too far on something, there is a boomerang effect where you end up going back to where you started. And I do believe that's where we're headed as far as managers. Now, I don't know if the Yankees will succumb to that pressure, but maybe they should.
You never know. The Bulls in the early 90s, in 91, they fired Doug Collins, and everyone's like, why are you firing this young kid? And they bring in the old geezer, right? You're bringing in Phil Jackson. I'm going to go triangle offense. We're going to do less. We're going to play smart. And Michael Jordan's sitting there saying, why am I, who just scored 69 points in a game, in a playoff game, why would I want to shoot the ball less? I'm the best player in the world. No one's better than me. And he said, watch this. You're going to do less, and we are going to do more. Okay. Shows up, three-peat. Takes a year off, comes back, three-peat. So it goes to show you the value of coaching, of discipline, of playing team baseball and just understanding who does what and why. Right now, there's no real understanding as to why certain guys make those mistakes. They don't seem random. They seem like repeat offenders at this point. That you can't trust this group just to make the sound decision. And I will tell you, people can complain about ops and batting average and strikeouts and all these different numbers from all these different hitters. There's a ton at work here. If they just played smarter, where you can trust them to just make the correct choice, this team, I know they said they projected them to have 5 more wins, and the broadcast today brought up that it probably had a lot to do with Williams, right? Devin Williams blowing a lot of games at the beginning of the year. I don't believe that. I don't. That's their opinion. They're allowed to have it. It's no problem with it. My opinion, this team's lost 5 to 6 games already this year, just not thinking the game. And that is why I want someone in. If Boone all of a sudden is going to start holding players accountable, start making decisions that are more cutthroat, more leadership oriented, then by all means, I'll clap like a seal. But I haven't seen anything in the distant future or in the distant past or even recently that would suggest that's going to happen. So that's my worry. Jalen Sestero, always been great for us. Welcome back. Thank you for the 10. Says, Boone manages his team like a manager at Walmart. The schedule, the lineup, is made at the beginning of the week, and that's what they stick to. And once you approach 40 hours for the week, you get a day. And I would agree with this. Obviously, it's written in a humorous way, but it's so accurate.
It is.
We seem to have a plan that we have no variation, no human element to it, where they tell us that we're not married to the analytics. Like, Boone is still making decisions, but then you kind of peel it back and just watch, right? And you watch the decisions that are made, and you can say there's just no way that you watched a player have 4 hits in a day and then showed up the next day and tell me, to Jalen's point, you didn't have a plan to sit him. Of course you did. Because what if he went 0 for 4? He would have just been sitting anyway. So very disappointing. It is a plan. That's exactly, Jake. I mean, wouldn't you agree? We just have a plan of exactly how the week's going to go, and they just roll it
silly,
out
though,
and see where it goes. It's
just the reason why it's so silly is because you're playing baseball. So likely it's all going to be, occasionally you get a 4-game set. But for the most part, you could be facing 3 different teams. If there's no day off, you can face 3 different teams in a week.
That's right.
You're going to plan that far ahead? Because I do agree. I think he plans the bullpen out. I think he plans the lineup out. Whether they use Chat GPT or whatever, I don't know. I don't care. But I do believe that they definitely plan the lineup out, and you can hear it when he's talking. Because again, Boone's not trying to give away everything. He's not trying to tell you the secret sauce. But if you listen close enough, he does. And he will. And I mean, he's not like, super secretive, but he'll say things like, yeah, we had him down. As soon as he said we had him down for a day off. We had him down for this. He says that. That's when you know this is pre-planned. And it's not what they want you to think is it's pre-planned in a sense. It's a 2-day, 3-day span. But I don't know. Basing.
Are we the NBA? I feel like we're the only baseball team that manages their club like an NBA team. Scheduled days off. I believe that's how we run things. And look at the evidence on social media. There are a lot of people who defend this behavior, and they say, well, this is good because why would you want to play Jason Dominguez for 145 games? He's going to be exhausted by the end of the year. And then they forget, and what's crazy about it, I'll see people 45, 55 years old pumping out this opinion. I'm sitting there thinking to myself, I'm like, didn't you grow up watching the game at all? You watch players play 155 games all the time, 162 games. There were guys who played every single day. Cal Ripken Jr. played every day. It was just a foregone conclusion. Yeah. It doesn't change your output. In my opinion, it actually helps your development. It helps you figure out there's an expectation I have to play tomorrow. How do I go about doing that? How do I perform to make sure I'm one of the best choices to be out there? And it just seems like, okay, it's all hands on deck today, and then we have a different rotation tomorrow. It's almost like hockey. I don't know what they're doing. I don't. Olivier with the 2 says, hell has frozen over. I want IKF to replace Vulpi. I tweeted this. So I don't know if this was taken. No, I'm just kidding. But I did post earlier today that, because remember, when Vulpi was coming up, before he even got here, and mostly our audience is old enough to remember this, Anthony Vulpi, before he showed up, we had a stopgap situation at short with Isaiah Kiner-Falefa. And Jake and I actually liked what IKF was doing. We just thought that obviously he's being dealt a bad hand. He's being put out of position. And people are obviously looking for the future shortstop. They're not looking for you. But then now, if I had IKF, I'm thinking I have a better player than Anthony Vulpi in today's game. It's pretty sad.
Yeah, that's not what I was expecting to be talking about in 2025 when he first got called up. Because I'm not going to sit here and act like I wasn't hyped. A young player that they sold us to be like, Derek Jeter with pop is how he was put in some cases. Yeah, I was excited to see him, and I like that they stuck with him, and they stuck with him for a full year, but I don't like that they messed around with his swing, and I don't like how this guy who is played over 400 games clearly does not have any confidence right now. I think somebody failed along the way, and yeah, he deserves responsibility for that. But we've talked about him way too much at this point. Oh, it's your mom.
Yeah, you could take this one. I'm not going to read my mom's own chat.
I would pay good money to have you and Jake let Bubbles chill in the clubhouse one game and have you guys manage one game.
It would be pretty cool if we could manage the game. It'd be nice. There's so much that goes into it because they're trying to, is a guy banged up, whatever it is, right? But I feel like the Yankees do put just too much weight and there's just too many variables. Take some of these variables out of there. Not all of them, right? If a player's hurt, if he's not right physically,
I agree.
Right, you can step off the field. Let's go with some reinforcements there. That's why we have roster depth. But we don't have roster depth, so it can just be musical chairs. Everybody gets 10. It almost feels like Pony League tryouts where your coach walks up to you and said, hey, did you get your 2 at-bats for the day, little Timmy? Okay, Jimmy only had 1 at-bat. So, hey, Jimmy, okay, come back to the dugout. Timmy's got to go out there and take his 2nd at-bat. Everyone's excited. Everyone gets a trophy. Everyone gets 300 at-bats this year rather than 600 for a starter, which we're used to. It's interesting. It's an interesting deployment of your talent.
Oh, Bubbles is Boone. Okay.
So Boone got autocorrected to Bubbles?
He's blowing bubbles. That's all he's doing, I guess. No, it's sunflower seeds, right? He doesn't even chew gum. He just spits sunflower seeds all day. I don't know. His watch choice is interesting. Watch?
All over. Yeah, have you seen it seems like he's wearing a new watch every day. At the very least, the band is different. It's yellow, it's blue. It doesn't match at all.
That's
yeah,
interesting.
the blue one's fine. It's just not the right shade of blue. The neon colors of the wristband is crazy.
He matched with Jazz the other day. I thought that was weird.
Yeah, they're great friends. You didn't know that?
I knew you were going to say that. I did cue you up for that. B-Rye, thank you for the 5. Not saying Peraza is the answer, but I wish he at least got 2 to 3 weeks playing every day. For context, Vulpi hit 180 through mid-June in his rookie year.
Excellent point.
Yeah,
it's a point.
I mean, I'm not like, if the Yankees were like, we're just going to play Peraza over Vulpi tomorrow, you think I'm sitting here complaining? Look, Peraza needs to hit, but it's like what I said. I mean, his glove is better than Vulpi's right now. And I know there are Vulpi fans that would say no way, but
Vulpi fans.
there are Vulpi fans out there. There are. Where's Jeremy?
What is it called? What do they call it? Vulpi glazers? Is that what the young kids call it? Glaze?
Yeah, like, bro. Oh, Jesus. With the glaze. Get out of here with that. Kidding me? Oh, my Lord.
Well, I mean, is Peraza a worse bat tomorrow? If you guys had to throw Peraza in the lineup, would you have more faith? What?
Ronnie.
Wait, did Ronnie change his name on here?
Ronnie De Oro? It's still Ronnie.
Yeah, it is still Ronnie. Ronnie, thank you for the 200. Says, watch the 30 for 30 House of Steinbrenner. Have I never seen this?
Did you just hear? Yeah, thank you for the 200. What do you mean that? Where did this come from? Thank you,
I
Ronnie.
almost like, crapped in my chair.
Yeah, I know. I was like, you know what?
Ronnie,
I could
you're
let you say what you want to say, but I'm just going to put it up and see your reaction. Ronnie is awesome. Ronnie's also a Rams fan, so obviously makes him just superior to everybody else. No, I'm kidding. But no, Ronnie, we really do appreciate you. Appreciate
Thanks,
every super chat on
man.
here, obviously. But Ronnie, really do appreciate the House of Steinbrenner. I haven't
seen this at all. So he says House shows you exactly who he is and why the current state of the Yankees is a thing. He's a softie that clung to mommy and resentment and a resented daddy. So, which is why every time fans say, if George were here, Hal reminds us of his shortcomings. Sad. So I'm not going to dive too much into like family therapy type stuff and like how he feels. But I mean, obviously, if you put it into a documentary, I'm allowed to comment on it. It's now public knowledge. So having said this, like I said earlier, there's clearly things about George Steinbrenner that are flaws. He was temperamental. He would trade anyone on a whim. But you know one thing he did send a message of? I do not accept mediocrity. That was the message. And that mentality, so whether or not they traded somebody or not, every single player, that includes my dad, it included Alex Rodriguez, Derek Jeter, and they can show up to the media and say whatever they want before they go home. But when they get home, best believe they all know if I don't do my job, he doesn't give a rip how much money I make. He doesn't care how long my contract is. He doesn't care how much the scouts like me. He'll get rid of me if I don't do my job. That's something clearly that you can say that Hal views as a flaw, a character flaw, that he will step on anyone's toes no matter what if you don't perform. In my opinion, that is one of my favorite things about him, is that it doesn't matter what I like about you. It doesn't matter about what we've got going on personally. You've got to do your job. And as long as you do your job, it's all good. I'll pay you whatever. That's something that Hal maybe doesn't have to step in line exactly with what George would do. There's certainly things to tweak, but man, just make a variation of it. You don't need to just go left because he went right. I think that's a little bit too much.
Yeah, I like that Ronnie brought this up because I literally was saying this and I didn't even watch this, and now I'm definitely going to watch this. I'm
Where
not a
can
big
we watch this?
I mean, I assume it would be ESPN Plus because it's 30 for 30, right?
Yep, that tracks. I don't have that, so.
But let me just
movies.123 or whatever the website is now.
God. You're gonna get us fly swatted.
Oh God.
House of Steinbrenner. Oh yeah, okay. I kind of remember this coming out.
Has anyone else seen this? How have I not seen this?
You can get it on Amazon, a DVD for $133.
What do you mean?
You can actually get the physical DVD copy for $1.33 on Amazon right now.
I don't even think I have a DVD player anymore.
Yeah, you do.
But my PlayStation, is that it?
Yeah, you can play DVDs on PlayStation.
Okay, that might be my only DVD player. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that's going to be interesting. So this is the homework for the week. Everyone needs to watch this. House of Steinbrenner. And then make sure you take notes, all MLA format.
It's literally $1.33. Oh, there's only one left in stock. I should probably tell you that. You might want to buy it right now before one of our viewers buys.
Why do I have to buy a disc to watch anything? It's probably on YouTube. I bet you I can still find it on YouTube.
Yeah, no, it probably is on YouTube. Kind of like Bronx is Burning. Oh, ESPN. Yeah, ESPN, I think, dropped it on their... I don't even know.
I genuinely can't believe that these companies like ESPN charge money so that we can go watch something that was on TV.
In 2010.
It's just barbaric to me. It's crazy.
Now, to be fair, full disclosure, it came out in 2010, so opinions could have changed by now.
We're also fresh off of a World Series championship. Hal was probably feeling himself in this documentary. He's like, no, my way is the highway.
Oh, my God. Yeah, you're probably right. But yeah, Ronnie, really appreciate that. That was
Thank you,
awesome.
Ronnie. You're awesome.
Roman de los Santos, thank you for the 5. Gary, we need your pops to come and coach these group of flawed players. Save us, chef.
Yeah, he coaches like little league kids at this point, and as you can imagine how that goes. With his demeanor, just yelling at a bunch of 9-year-olds.
Replay op, thank you for becoming a field level member. We
Welcome
appreciate you.
Thank you.
Welcome in. Ed W.
The GOAT.
Love Ed. Thank you for the 5. Concerned that lighter is off
That
a cliff.
space is intentional, I would assume. L lighter.
Oh, man. And Vulpi is so bad. No line is... No one's focused on the fact that Boone keeps him high leverage. Check out June splits. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Yeah.
That's when you know someone's really mad about the performance from Anthony Volpe.
At least he's not Luis Robert, I guess. Right, that's the only thing I got that's positive.
Do you know I saw someone prominent in Yankees Twitter say that Robert got hurt, and they said, well, there goes that.
What?
Are you guys being for real?
That was never a thing. I'm not buying anything. I don't care if that Mike Random dude who can't ever break any news correctly, who said Loizaga was going to get like $10 million this year. I don't care who broke it. It's not real. The Yankees were never interested. Yeah.
I know who you're talking about. And that's sad. You just said his first name, and I was like, yeah. He's just talking.
So when's Loizaga getting the $10 million that we were told?
CT, welcome in.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us. I mean, good Lord.
He's talking about Anthony Volpe splits. Then I want to see it. All right. What's his...
Oh, you talking about the lefty-righty splits?
No, I think he's talking about high leverage.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay. Go ahead.
All right, let's see here. They're actually not as bad as I thought. High leverage this year, 255 with a 778 OPS. Like he's better than last year. But a medium leverage, 146 with a 535 OPS.
Did you say 146?
He's tiki barbering me right now. Just walking off the set.
Are you joking?
146
is a pitcher.
I'm sadly not. I don't know. That's rough. Wait, that can't be right. How was that? 2 outs, runners in scoring position. No. 2 outs, runners in scoring position. Okay. He has a 178 batting average.
Is it hating? What else am I supposed to think about this?
Late in close games, he has a 182. A tie game. Okay. Get this.
Yep.
101. He has a 330 OPS when the game is tied. By the way, is when 77 plate appearances.
Okay. That's when he faces good pitching. So when you talk about high leverage late in games, that is when you're facing some of the better arms in the bullpen, right? They're going to be able to tee up the matchup. You're not going to be able to see the 3 through 5 starters like oftentimes late in the game. That just doesn't happen. But what you will see is a team setup man and their choice of closer, whoever that is. And that tends to be the best arms that teams have in their bullpen. So who is Anthony Volpe against some of the game's best arms? There you have it. He is a 100 hitter.
He was talking about lighter splits. I'm an idiot.
Well, I'm glad that you took it that direction, though, because it was very funny.
Well,
but I'm assuming you're talking about splits between lefties and righties. He was intended here when he got here is he dominates lefties. He's obviously got the splitter, but righties where he has problems. So what are the splits?
Well, 305 batting average against righties and 282 against lefties.
That's way worse than I would have ever anticipated, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it's horrible.
So he turns you into Tony Gwynn if you're a righty. And then you're Brandon Belt.
So month by month.
Yeah.
April, March, 208, 616 OPS.
Yes.
May, 283, 740 OPS. And June, and mind you, this is 46 plate appearances.
Okay.
A 395 batting average and a 900 OPS in June.
Wait a minute. Oh, well, yeah. I mean, June just... Oh, wait a minute. In June?
I was waiting for, like... Mark Leiter Jr. gave up a 900 OPS in June. And I'm not talking about certain splits. I'm not talking... This is what Ed was talking about.
That's Freddie Freeman.
Playoff Freddie Freeman.
That is Freddie Freeman. Guys, look up and down the lineups. You look at both teams' lineups today. There is not one player on the field for either team other than Aaron Judge with an ops near 900.
High leverage, he's giving up 360 and a 919 OPS. Medium leverage, 188 and a 431 OPS. And low leverage, 291 and a 764. So essentially, Anthony Vulpi and Mark Leiter Jr. have the same leverage splits. They're better at medium leverage.
So we need to tee them up for medium. What is defined as medium leverage? What does that even mean?
That's a good question. I have no idea.
They're like, this seems kind of important. Medium leverage.
Yeah, like what? 2 outs, runners in scoring position, 919 OPS. That's good to know. Okay.
That's a Hall of Famer offensively.
Yeah, so no outs, he gives up a 333 batting average, 810 OPS. 1 out, 304 batting average, and 751 OPS. And when he has 2 outs, he is giving up a 233 batting average and a 670 OPS. I'm still looking for... Well, I would hope so. Where is the leverage, though, like you were just talking about?
Like a definition of what that means. Because we're saying low leverage. We know what low leverage means. This is not an important at bat. It's not important. Okay.
Everyone is about to learn something that they didn't know. Because I don't buy that anybody in here knew
Let it rip.
Medium leverage was. Not quite there yet. It's taking a little bit to load. So medium leverage... Okay, so it's like a whole... It looks like it's like a number system. This is weird. Okay. Leverage index created by Tom Tango, right? So
Tom Tango? It sounds like Jack Reacher, like some... What?
I knew you were going to say something, but I had to, whatever. I had to give him credit. The guy created the damn thing. Index measures the importance of particular event by quantifying the extent to which win probability could change on that event, with 1.0 representing a neutral situation. For instance, if a team trailing by 3 runs had the bases loaded with 2 outs in the 8th inning, the ensuing plate appearance would register a leverage index above 1.0. This is because the outcome of the game could dramatically change on that one plate appearance. Conversely, if a team trailing by 4 runs has a man on first with 1 out in the top of the 9th inning, the ensuing plate appearance would register below a 1.0. So really the way I gather this, and it didn't really tell me a ton, but what I gather from this is that high leverage is essentially game breaking. This moment could kill you.
It's a clutch
Medium leverage is like, okay, there's a runner on first. Okay, there might be a runner on second, and I need to take this guy out. But I'm also up by 3 runs, so that 1 run won't kill me. That's medium.
It's going to tip the scales. Medium can tip the scales much further in your favor, or you can flip the game the other direction. High leverage is if something doesn't happen for you, your team's screwed. This, if you come through, this is considered a clutch at bat. We would, old school guys would define it. David Ortiz, what he did to us in 2004, those are high leverage. Clutch at bats. What he did to Benoit, clutch grand slam, right? Those things make sense. So essentially what we're learning is that Anthony Vulpi is atrocious in low leverage situations. He's okay in medium, and you said it was atrocious in high, obviously.
Yes.
So we knew he was atrocious in high leverage. I mean, that's just a given. Bad baseball players aren't good when it just gets tough all of a sudden. But it's interesting that medium helps, and low, you'd assume more times than not, he's in a low leverage situation. Like, it's not a big deal. Get on base, make something happen. So it's disappointing. Roman, I guess I can't even say it. Nah, screw it. I'll tell you guys. My name when I was first born was Roman.
Really?
True story. Yeah.
Damn.
My mom can confirm this true. Obviously, we won't dive in the details, but my name was Roman. Yeah. And Roman with the 2 says, facts, Gary. It's called accountability. I love accountability when it comes to a baseball team because guys aren't going to play good. This isn't all Aaron Boone, right? Some guys like Paul Goldschmidt have gone ice cold. You can mention Ben Rice. He wasn't finding holes for a few weeks. His batting average plummeted from like 265, 270 all the way down to 225. And we talked about the bad luck, all that, right? But all of this negatively impacts Boone in the bottom line. Cruz is hurt. That doesn't help Boone. But having said all of this, if this team was just simply more accountable, you'd be able to find more ways to win ball games. You just happen to find a way. That's what all the great teams happen to have. They're highly accountable. If they do something wrong, they're going to show up and correct it. How many decisions do the Yankees make, or how many physical errors, mental errors do the Yankees make where you say, okay, well, let's watch tomorrow and see if they correct that? I really can't tell you who on this team has corrected mental mistakes. I still see Aaron Judge just diving into the crowd, despite you'd think that would be out of his game. Can you believe that? That you saw Aaron Judge, and mind you, he was hustling, he was working hard, so I'll never down that.
Yeah.
But for Aaron Judge to jump over the wall in a moment where it wasn't like a do or die play at all, we didn't need the catch, none of it, and he's just diving into the net. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe my eyes.
Stock up for the Nets' strength, because that's a 6'7", 280-pound defensive lineman that's running, and somehow the net didn't collapse. Did you see the people? They're like, they were terrified. They were hoping it wasn't going to collapse. I'm surprised it didn't. But Ed, appreciate you. I was talking about Leiter's June numbers. They are absolute shit, and Boone has him high leverage. So I had to take that because Gary doesn't curse on this show. But thank you, Ed.
Yeah, just offline. As soon as we get out of here, I'm like,
he's a sailor. No, but no. Yeah, we just went over that, and I'm glad. I want to give Ed credit because we went over that because of Ed. So if anybody learned anything, about Leiter and indirectly Vulpi, it was because
poor Vulpi. He took a stray. Anthony Vulpi, he took a total stray. We're like, Leiter's, wait a minute, Volpe's high leverage numbers, and we went and just dug into his numbers, and they looked atrocious, but he wasn't even talking about it. So, Ed, thank you for that. My milkshakes. People, by the way, were laughing that we were calling Big D, and they're like, oh, Big D. We've seen it all. We're not sure where Cheeks is. No idea where Cheeks is.
Yeah,
William
that's
Downer.
Disappointing.
Where's William Downer? Where's Cheeks?
I'm
Where
a
are
little
these guys?
concerned because Willie Downer was in the comments section and he was under our videos every single day. We're on episode, 261?
He was here for the last 45 of them. And then all of a sudden they changed the handles.
He's okay.
Was he AI? We're not sure. So my milkshakes with a 10. Thank you for supporting this channel. We really appreciate you getting involved. This is kind of off topic, but it doesn't seem like there's prime catchers in the game anymore. This is actually something I mentioned a few weeks ago, Jake. Guys like Yachty, Joe Mauer, Posada, etc., they don't seem to exist anymore. Thoughts. So I have a clear thought on this. Here's my opinion. I think Jake is over the target. He talks about framing, analytics. I think framing and analytics is so important in today's game, not maybe to me, but to these front offices, that you really struggle to get offensive catchers on the field every single day that just so happen to have quality analytics in terms of framing. So I think that's the deal. I don't think it's any deeper than that. They just don't allow guys to slug at catcher. Like, you don't see a ton of Gary Sanchez anymore. Like, that attempt will give up the catching, but as long as you hit 30 homers, then great. So that's my answer as to why that happens.
Well, you already know my take. I 100% agree. I think that
I basically stole it from you, so you
there's
had it.
such a focus on framing, and I saw it was funny. Ascara needs help at the plate right now. He's hitting 222. I still like his swing, obviously, and I think he has a decent approach, but like he should be focusing on hitting, in my opinion. And they have him before the game mainly focusing on framing. Did you see that?
Yes.
So it's like, there you go. It's like that. And I understand he could do both, right? Because batting cage exists and all this. But I'm saying if you're JC Ascar, you're 30 years old, you're finally in the big leagues, and you're trying to stick around, like, aren't you trying to really find the nuanced details of how you could really, improve that bat? I feel like they're way more focused to the point of framing. And I mean, they showed us that on the broadcast.
Well, if they're focused on it, I guess you get to show up and say, what do you need me to do? Frame? I'm a professional framer. I'm not even a catcher. I just frame. And yeah,
you should just say that from now on. I'm just going to think of Windows. It's just a guy just comes over. It's just Windows. That's all it is.
Yeah, so, Tyler says the JC cost us today. I mean, it had a major role in the game. Obviously, they did lose 12-5,
but yeah,
we lost by 7, did we? Yeah, I mean, we lost by a touchdown, and one thing led to another. You have an interference call, you're third in 2 days, and then you give up a grand slam right after. Yeah, that's going to have a huge impact. It's disappointing, but that's part of the reason why it happens. They just sort of know, if I'm going to be judged off this certain thing, and that certain thing is framing, mind you guys, this is why Austin Wells really plays as much as he does. It's the framing. He's literally, and when I say literally the #1 framer in baseball. So people can say what they want about his swing, his uppercut, all these different things. That's the main reason why he catches every day. So is it the way it should be? I don't know. You can ask Max Fried, ask Rodon. How important do you guys think this is? They clearly think it's important. Otherwise, they'd say, hey, just bring in someone who can hit. So I think that's why.
So the Yankees are relying on Mason Miller to close this game out. It is 4-3 right now. Bottom of the 10th. The Rays are down. The A's are up 4-3, and the Rays are down to their last out. It's Josh Lau at the plate. He's 0 for 4. There's a runner on first and second.
Okay.
So basically, if Mason Miller wins this, the Rays drop to 1.5, right?
I think it would be 1.
Well, no, they would. They're 1 right now.
Oh, yeah, I guess so. I literally have the game on. Literally.
That's so funny. Well, we'll wait for. We'll talk.
Well, let's make our picks, and then we'll just
talk about
give
our picks, and then we'll just tell you what's happening. So, all right. Looking at tomorrow's game, Will Warren is on the mound, and he's taking on Jose Barrios, who's had good experience against the Yankees in the past. So since Barrios is a righty, well, I guess nothing matters. There's no rhyme or reason for anything. But I'm going to go with total bases here. We'll bring up the Profit X here just to give you, even though it doesn't show you anything here. They don't have it up yet. I'm not going to pick the Yankees to win. I'm not going to pick them to lose. I'm going to stay away from that. We nailed the first inning one. I told you they would have more than a run. They would have at least a run in the first inning. They did. I'm probably going to stay away from that this time around.
Mason Miller just boxed, so if there's a single, Tampa's going to win this game.
Oh, awesome.
Yep, 3rd and 2nd now.
It's funny, I had the I had the game cast up, and I just saw the ball just going out of the yard, and I was like, are you freaking kidding me? I think it just
That is
glitched.
ball game. Wow, it must be nice just having a bullpen that shuts it down like that. That'd be nice.
Wait, they won?
Yes, they did.
Oh, cool. Okay, so Mason Miller got the job done. Wouldn't know what that's like, but anyway. Anyway, okay, looking at tomorrow's game, Gary.
Mm-hmm.
I love Will Warren. I love his strikeout potential. Dude has 103 strikeouts in 80 1/3. But I just do not like strikeout plays against the Blue Jays. I just don't. That's just not. They're not.
That was
going to
be my thing, and I told you that's what I said about Fried today. It's not that I don't like Fried in the matchup. I mean, Fried, it was a good matchup. He has the advantage against any team he plays, really, outside of probably the Dodgers. But you come in, when you look at the style of how they like to play, they put the ball in play. They do. So for you to come in and think you're going to strike out 10, it's not going to happen. We could do that in other series, not this one. So I'm going to assume the ball's in play. Warren's still going to get his Ks. He just finds a way. That sweeper's nasty. Mm-hmm. But I'm also going to make the assumption there's going to be some runs scored tomorrow. I think we're going to see some runs up on the board in general. I'm taking the over.
On the 5 innings?
On the 5 innings. I would take the over.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go with Jason Dominguez to ride that hot streak. I'm going to go total bases for him. I'm going to go total bases for Ben Rice, who better be in the lineup tomorrow, so help me. Both of those guys, total bases, going up against a righty. I like the way Ben Rice was driving the baseball. Obviously, it went into every single glove, but I like the way he was driving the baseball the last time he was in the lineup. Ridiculous he wasn't in the lineup today. And I just really like the way Jason Dominguez, he looks really, comfortable at the plate. He's one of the hottest hitters on the team. It's covered up because he doesn't play every day. If he was playing every day like Jazz and was one of the hottest hitters on the team, you'd know it. Unfortunately, or fortunately, that's why you have us, because we can actually relay that information to you. But Jason Dominguez is playing very well, so I like those two.
All right, cool. Yeah, so we'll just roll with those picks. I'm not even going to give you an over 1.5 total bases because I feel like I don't trust anybody to do it outside of Jazz and Bellinger. Really, that's it. So what are we going to have them drop in the comment section, by the way? How about this?
Lord have mercy.
Yeah. What do you guys think has to happen for the Yankees to feel like a change could be in order? I'm not rooting for Aaron Boone to be fired. I never root for someone to lose their job. It's just not that. Mm-hmm. However, having said that, when you look at a manager and there's clearly a job to be done and there's something that, is there a bottom line? What is the bottom line? What do you guys think has to happen for Aaron Boone to lose this job, for the Yankees to maybe pass the baton to somebody else, an old school manager? Drop it down in the comment section, not in the live. It will just disappear into the ether, unfortunately. But make sure you guys like the video. And then after we're done being live, hop in the comments and drop that in. Yeah.
So be sure to check out Yanks U is the code over on Profit X. We appreciate them as always. And that's going to do it.
And like this video.